Good evening, everyone. You're welcome to Art Pulse. Art Pulse is a Bar Poetry Club monthly open mic where we connect with poets in Nigeria and across the globe to share their perspectives about our very prized art, is poetry. Um, this evening we're having a special session because this is the final session for the year 2023. We've been doing this since September, and we've been doing it 2 times every month up till this point. And I want to thank everybody for trying to join us. And of course, I especially want to thank our special guests who have suspended their very prized statements to be with us this evening. Most of them have joined, and hopefully more will be joining. I pray that the network is friendlier this evening so that we can have this wonderful session. My name is Ago Prince Osinaya. They call me Happy Prince. That's my pen name. Um, I am the founder of Aba Poetry Club. The Aba Poetry Club was founded in 2017 with the sole aim of galvanizing creatives in the city of Aba. Aba is in Abia State in the southeast of Nigeria. Galvanize our creatives in that city and bring poetry to the fore because we realized that at that time that everyone was more interested in the business side of the city, ignoring the creative side of that city. So we decided to bring people together. And some of these people are here in this room today. Some of them are our special guests this evening. Um, one of the some of the programs that we have achieved or accomplished over the years, we have the roadside notes. So roadside notes, we came up with that idea to read poetry in the streets, and we were able to do that sometime in 2018 or 2019, 2019. We were able to successfully accomplish that. And in 2018, we had Aba is a Story, which had DK Chukwumerije as our special guest. So he came from Abuja to Aba to attend that event. I remember that Nnamdi Elekwachi, the president of the club, who is here with us tonight, that he and I traveled all the way from Aba to Abuja to meet with DK and tell him about the program we were planning, and he came. And in 2019, we organized and hosted the first ever Aba Literary Festival, which was a very successful event. We've been able to do a few things, but one of our greatest accomplishments would be can we please turn off our mics so that we don't interrupt with the flow. One of our greatest accomplishments, I'll always say, is that ability to bring poets together, to bring people together to share, their works without any hindrance. That's our greatest, what I think and believe that is our greatest achievement. And we've been able to, since then, build a community of creatives. Before now, we're having weekly meetings, weekly physical meetings, which we've now had to relax because the world is changing and people may not have the time to come and sit down every weekend to have these readings. So our weekly readings now are special requests or special occasions. We've also had the programs like the 1,000 Love Letters and many, which was our Valentine show, and many programs like that. Us all to this special edition of Art Pulse. And I want to especially thank everyone who has found time to be here with us tonight. We don't take it lightly that you found the time to join us. So some of the things will be a few things will be happening this evening, and one of them is that we have a very special guest in our midst. This is one man who I've enjoyed his creativity. There's opportunity to read with him at a special reading of one of America's oldest poets, Pa Abiodun, who was a founding member of the what is known as the Last Poet. So Mr. Paul Word Richmond is someone that I share that space with every 2 weeks. You know, most of the time I'm there to have this those readings, and I was taken by his works, and I decided, okay, this man must have something that we can learn from. And I didn't want to do the learning alone. So I decided to, okay, let's have him. So I approached him about it, and he didn't have any problem with joining us this evening. And I really, really want to appreciate you, sir, for, you know, finding the time to join us. So this program this evening is in 2 sessions. We're going to have an interview with him, and then we're going to also listen to his performances before we now get to our guest performers to share their works with us. Like I said earlier, I pray that the network will be friendly with us. There's a storm here in Abuja, and I believe that's what is affecting Confidosa network, and I pray that Confidosa network will find the grace of mind this evening. So so we're going to have the interview with him, and then we're going to go to the performances by our guest performers this evening. But before we get into that, I want to say these few words of poetry in honor of our special guests. Mr. Paul Word Richmond is a madman. Wait, wait, wait! Before your seats become hot stones that hit me in this marketplace of one. I do not speak of the madness that dances a mind down the streets begging refugees food to eat. The madness that races the dopamine above the threshold of acetylcholine. I do not speak of the madness that dug early Sunday graves in Ozobolo, dropped Imo on Kent Street, threatening censorship on my last tweets. No. I do not speak of the madness that bombed Delay, the madness that shot Kudirat, the madness that bled Babaige on the bedroom floor. Nor do I speak of the madness that bombed, the madness that took Lumumba, the madness that took Rodney. Maybe the madness that gave us penicillin, the madness that gave us benzene, the madness that gave Archimedes the solution, the madness that led Galileo for speed move. But I speak of the madness that creates the fondness that brings the wonders that lights voices for the voiceless. Of this madness I speak, screaming at it, speak, madness. So that's in honor of our special guest. And can we all hear me? I think somebody sent a message that they can't hear me. Can you hear me? Can someone hear me?
Yes, I did hear you.
Yes, 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 yes.
Does Mr. Opia sent me a message that I can't hear? Okay. So thank you very much.
I can hear you now.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Richmond, for finding time to join us this evening. So we'll get right into it. We have 2 hours for this session. We have 2 hours for this session. We have, I think we spent about We spent about 23 minutes of that. We have 2 hours
Somebody
and
has to, the other people have to mute, I guess, because it's feeding back.
yeah, please, can we please mute our mic so that we don't miss that leaking sound? Thank you. So head right into the interview, Mr. Richmond. I need to repeat this. The essence of this interview is for us to learn. There have been a lot of questions about what it's like being a creative elsewhere, the concept of art for art's sake. People saying poetry, I've heard it a number of times, even from some of the people that we consider to be very senior colleagues, that there's no money in poetry, and people will tell you go get a job. So I want to know what it's like in America, if that also happens, if art has the support that it needs, in America. I remember during COVID, something happened during COVID in Germany. During COVID in Germany, artists in Germany were paid by the German government throughout the period of the COVID. They were paid by the German government. But in Nigeria here, nothing happened. You keep hearing there are funds and nobody's claiming the funds. So I want to know, and I know that we all want to know what it's like being a poet in America. So I open with this question, sir. If you would kindly tell us who is Paul Word Richmond?
Thank you very much for having me. I'm honored to be here, and I'm looking forward to hearing everyone else too. Let's see, my that little Paul Word Richmond came about because of being hacked, where my Paul Richmond site was taken over, and I had to add another word to get my name in there. And so I do a lot of word events, and I just threw that in, and suddenly people were telling me that they thought it fit me. So there you go. You just never know how these things are going to happen. I have been an artist for a very long time in different art forms. I would say that throughout the world and throughout history, art usually is not supported. And artists have always had to have patrons of some form, or some people might say they try to sell out and have the art that people will buy over what they feel. I think if you're going to be an artist, you have to want to be. It's something that you feel there's something you have to express, whether it's painting, dancing, writing. I was inspired by, I didn't know how to read for a very long time. America, puts out that they have the best schools, all these things. They do not. They've been cutting funds for education constantly. The arts have been removed in many ways. So, but my reading skills were very low. Like I was maybe a fourth grade reader in seventh grade. I didn't learn how to pronounce. But then once I started to get into reading and I got better, I was encouraged by the idea of having a voice, being heard. And I realized the importance of words. And growing up with, of all folks, Cassius Clay, Muhammad Ali, being on the TV and interviews and saying his responses in his song poetry way suddenly had me realize and be turned on to, oh, there's all kinds of ways of communicating. Also, I think the record industry, the rock and roll, the music that happened in the 60s, or Dylan, various people, I went for much more of the songs that seemed to be saying something about what I was experiencing. Your question about, I'll jump around probably, but your question about, there was some funds during COVID, but we lost a lot of venues. People didn't go out because of fear of getting COVID. We are still having a hard time bringing audiences back to come out to see events. And there seems to be more COVID happening now that it supposedly is over. So I know a lot more people who are sick. There was a Zoom happened, so I ended up doing more readings during of Zoom, and here we are, which was a positive thing because I would have never read with folks from Nigeria or from Australia or Germany, and I got turned on to all these people and artists and countries that I hadn't really looked at their works, and I'm really glad that happened. The idea of having to go get a job, I think if you were an entrepreneur, as they say, you never just have one pot on the stove. You have many pots on the stove because each of them can't be the only survival, because you may not survive even as an artist. As an example, I was a professional juggler for a long time, and I couldn't have just survived by doing street shows or being in schools or being at ski resorts, or there was a long list of figuring out places where I could perform. Writers, I have created what is called human air publishing, and I've set up stages at festivals where there never was a stage for words. And I call it a word festival to incorporate many folks, because sometimes people say they hate poetry, but then they hear poetry and they say, "What is that?" And I said, "Do you like it?" And they say, "Oh, is that a poem?" I'll stop there in terms of I was jumping around there, but so I know you had a bunch of questions.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. So I want to know who is the poet? Who would you call? How would you describe a poet? It's the person that writes poems. Who is a poet?
I think it's anybody, it can be everybody and anybody who finds themselves observing and saying and feeling the need to say something or express some feeling that they have. And then they may realize, okay, they're not the only one expressing that feeling. I think if you read any sci-fi or just watch reality, freedom of press goes under tyrants, not them telling certain lies to say this is what's happening when we know something else is happening. So artists and poets have sometimes been the ones to say that old thing about the emperor has no clothes, or this isn't what's going on, something else is going on. And so I think it's funny of whether or not some people think, you have to be a poet if you rhyme or if you use couplets or use a certain form or you state it in a certain way, or it's somebody can't understand it because it's like a abstract painting with lines. I mean, it's all, that's why I kind of went to words. It's all of those are okay, and whichever one you get gravitated towards, and there's some reason for that. You may ask yourself why, but all of it is acceptable, I think.
Okay, so from your response now, you subscribe to the free form, not the traditional form of poetry, because a lot of people will say that if it's not Shakespearean poetry, it's not poetry. So what do you say about that? Because like my next question was going to be, what is a poem?
Well, I mean, you have all these programs that people go to in terms of colleges and MFAs, and some people feel that people come out of one MFA program all sounding the same, or MFA programs sound the same or not. The beat that happened in the beat poets that happened in the United States in the 50s kind of helped break that open to have their own poetry readings, kind of do what you are doing. You decided you wanted to bring the arts and bring people together and create a community and have people read their works. And so are they all poets, or did you have a particular structure that everybody had to follow, or is it open that people can just come and express what they write? And so, and sometimes it gets into, well, which one is it and which one is better? And I don't prescribe to any of that. I mean, they're all out there, they're all there. Sometimes it's fun to say, okay, try to have the last, the 3 lines of this match the other 3 lines. It's like a game. But otherwise, many times I'm just writing from something that I've experienced, and there's a lot of emotions and it comes out. And so then I try to craft it. I'm not thinking ahead of time, is it falling into a structure necessarily? I guess some people call that free form, and it gets all kinds of things get called all kinds of things, whether or not that stops you from doing it or thinks you're not in that club. I think that just makes it a very limited way of looking at the world.
Yeah, thank you for that. Because that is really really a challenge for some people, who think that personally, I don't think that art should be something you cage. I think that art is something that should be allowed to flow freely because art is freedom.
Well, the reason I think that it is caged is the economics of it, because someone will say, okay, well, how are we going to sell this? Is this poem about dogs? So we can pull all the dog lovers so they'll know to buy this poem, and the cat lovers won't buy the poem then because it's about a dog. If you go back to any of the great artists, you read some of their autobiographies, you see that the record companies or the publishing companies or whoever was trying to manage them kept trying to force them into saying, are you this? You're jazz, and you're hot jazz, you're experimental jazz, you're whatever it is, as if it was going to help people identify you to then decide if they liked you or not. Instead of having the experience and saying, I don't know what to call that. Did you like it? Was it? I mean, that's why I said I have sometimes at my festival, people will come and say, what's going to go on here? And I'll say words. People will tell stories, and there's prose and poetry. And then, like I said, sometimes I say, well, I liked some of that. I didn't think I was going to like it. It's like, well, probably because we didn't tell you it was going to be poetry and you already decided you hated poetry,
So what I take out from what you just said now that really struck me is that what you said about people's reaction to your events. Because sometimes when we organize events here, especially in Aba, in Abia State, you would see that we always have that issue of maybe low patronage, low attendance and all that. And sometimes you want to get support, and people are not really talking to you because they don't really see the value in what you're doing. And now that you've said this about people having different reaction or kind of a cold feet towards this, it kind of balances it, because sometimes what you think is not happening in what you think is happening in your society may also be happening in another society that you think is not happening in, and that's really very instructive there. But I'm going to go to draw a bit to the economics of it. Personal now. You have written and published a number of books. Would you say that you're fulfilled as a published author, and why is this?
Well, I think in terms of our own fulfillment, this kind of goes back to why are you doing what you're doing, and what did you hope for? Did I hope to sell 1 million copies, or was I hoping? So what happened in the beginning, I was going to, festivals around the country, word festivals, poetry festivals, and I was testing my work. I wanted to be in front of people who didn't know me, so that they didn't have to think that my friends weren't just going to say, I'm really, that was great. And when I started to come off the stages, people were asking me if I had a book. And so that showed me that they liked what I had. And and so then when I got rejected from various publishers, I had the computer skills, and it was around the time when many new technologies and print on demand happened, and so that's what I started to do. It was not to actually publish other authors. Now I have published over 66 authors, and I have 7 of my own books out, and I am fulfilling my goal of having my work out, and then the satisfaction of having people wanting to buy it after I get done at readings. Yes, we all would like, I think, more response, or it goes back to what I saw some of your questions. I mean, when I look at the world, I would hope that, maybe what I'm saying is going to help make some of the changes happen faster, or, to have some satisfaction, to feel as though I helped in that, so that a future generations can be here, that we don't just destroy the whole earth. I don't, in terms of I think again, in terms of the economics, it's tricky if you just put that, because you can always want more. There's always prices going up. And so I think it clouds why are you doing the art and what matters to you. And yes, many artists, I mean, think about how many artists that are, quote, now famous, like Coltrane, or some folks, people said he only had 20 or 30 people in the audience in some of those shows in the beginning. It wasn't like the clubs were packed, and, for who it was, like afterwards or near the end of people started to realize who he was. And with many of those kinds of performers, and I'm sure you have them in your own country, it's somehow afterwards they're hailed as the great writers, or great musicians or whatever it might be.
So this is not there, but I just want to say something. But what you saying, talking about the clubs and all that, I know that there's a very strong presence of the spoken word culture is very strong in America, and I know at some point I did a bit of reading about it and remember that it began in the salons in the 80s, and so what do you say about the spoken word culture in America? And before you answer, I remember also that a young lady, I've forgotten her name now, the lady that performed during President Biden, that read a poem,
Yeah.
that read a poem during Biden's inauguration, and what that did for, what do you think that did, that kind of strategic positioning of creators? What do you think it can do for the art? Because we've had a similar situation here where the vice president reading, just by reading a few lines of the book of Amanda Gorman and Nandi Lokachi, thank you for that. Amanda Gorman, where the former vice president of our country, he read a few words of the book by a poet, a very senior colleague here, Dike Chukwumerije, and that helped to, bring him to the front burner, as a national poet. So, what do you think that for if we have poets as government officials, in positions of authority, do you think that can help our art? Do you think we are wired that way? This is not even a question, but just from what you said, I just wanted to chip that in before we start running down what we have.
I think it has two ways I mean, first you have to have folks, certain example, the arts have been cut back in the schools in America for the last number of years. And one time when we went to perform at a school, they had never had an assembly, so they had no idea even what was going to go on. So I think if you take the arts out of the culture, it's hard for people to understand the arts or think of themselves as artists or think of why they might enjoy the arts. It is always helpful to have the arts presented or someone do something that someone says, wow, what was that? And if someone says that was a poem, that maybe that will encourage people to read other poems or read more poems by that person. And, in terms of, you said like the spoken word culture, I had to laugh. It was similar to when I was like I said, I was a juggler and I was in the International Juggling Association. I thought everybody was under the umbrella of juggling, or we're all under the umbrella of spoken word. And yet under that, you have what some people may argue is, no, there's the performance poets, there's the poets who read off the page, there's poets who do the prose, there's all the poets we mentioned before about MFAs or what they do. Oh, there's poets that read with musicians, and so it goes on and on and on. And is it like, are we together as those two people still see themselves as spoken word or poetry? Even that term, I looked up to find spoken word stuff and on Google, and many times spoken word comes up as religious groups, like the spoken word from God. So it's an interesting aspect that we're kind of trying to retake that word as spoken word artists. In other words, that I use words and I'm an artist with those words. And so I think we're always redefining things. And yes, anytime anybody, rock and roll, I feel, or any music, you must have your own singers or folks who maybe say things in a poetic way with their instruments, and any songs that may be the hit songs help further the fact that it's, someone's actually saying something, you're getting something from the words. So I would say, yes, that all helps, and we all have a part in trying to make that happen. Just back to a little bit, I think when you said, oh, I don't, whether or not the participation is happening, that's why I made the first change after the first year when I got the feedback that people were saying, I don't know why you'd have a poetry festival. And then when I changed it to a word festival just to see what happened, all of a sudden there was more people showing up in that curiosity about what was going to happen with the words. They like to read, so they were suddenly had questions about it. They didn't know people were going to be doing their own work. And so I think we have to be adaptable to how we're trying to get our art out there and realize whether we define it or somebody else defines it, how we do that, I guess.
Thank you very much. I think I'll break now and we take a performance.
Oh, you would like me to read something?
Yes.
Since our little talk that we did the other day, I guess this is something that happens in both of us. So, and I think you might have heard this one. This is called Justice. There's an old saying, there is no justice, only adjustment. Justice was made up to have a mommy and daddy to step in and make things fair. Why was your house blown away by the hurricane? Why was your house burned down by lightning? Everything you owned floated down the river. Are the gods mad at you? There is no justice, only adjustment. What about Johnny torturing Billy and raping Susie? What about all the injustices that are happening? I guess that's why we make laws. So many laws that don't stop anyone unless the community endorses them. And is that what we call justice? There is an old photo with a question under it. Is this the first prison? What you saw was a man lying down with a tree on top of him. The tribe had put the tree on him. They sat off to the side discussing what to do. He had stolen from them over and over and over and over again and had been told to stop, and he hadn't stopped. Now there he was with a tree on top of him, and he wasn't moving, and he had been stopped. The question was, do we leave him there for the ants, or do we actually believe him now that he says he will stop? The community had decided. Some call this justice. The game has been rigged for those with wealth and power. That's where the money and the lawyers come in, and they have the guns behind them. Deciding how the laws work for them, justice is declared for them, while the victims realize justice is just a word. We are made to believe over and over again, follow the laws, you won't be getting into any trouble. But what happens when everything is illegal? There aren't many choices. If you don't have the money, the lawyers, or the guns, you will be calling out, where is justice? We demand justice. Many have said in the past that God is deaf. Zeus and the gang are too busy fighting among themselves. Jesus is too busy telling his followers, you've got it all wrong. Buddha is telling us maybe this will all pass. I'm trying to stay in the moment. But it's not fair. Nobody ever said it was fair. Well, wait a minute. I guess they told Johnny to play fair. Johnny learned it wasn't fair. And if you're on the wrong color or from a lower class, yes, you keep hearing the screams for justice. If all the gods are deaf and if all the judges are bought off, if all the law enforcement is responsible for the rapings and the beatings and the killings, then where is the justice? I just want to say I'm tired of adjusting. I don't like the choices. I'm tired of playing the game where there are no winners for those who seek justice. By the way, did I mention again, I'm tired of adjusting. Some say love is the answer. Money is the god that funds the wars and destruction. I will love the day when there is accountability. For I am tired of the adjusting. Here comes the rain. Here comes the lightning. Here comes the wind. And it looks like someone let Johnny loose again.
Wow. That was beautiful. There's no justice, only adjustments. Thank you. Thank you for that piece. At this point, I'm going to invite, we're going to pause the questions. I'm going to invite, people in the room to just say a few words about this piece, and then we go on with the questioning. And then from there, we go on to every other person's work. I hope that's okay. So can we have, you can leave a comment on the in the chat box. You can also say something about it. You can pop up a hand or just unmute your mic and say something about it. So the floor is open. You can say things about the piece and just a little while, and then we continue. You want to say something about the piece, you will have the floor.
Okay. I don't know if I'm on.
Yes, we can hear
Maxwell.
you, Mr. Opia. We can hear you, sir.
Maxwell speaking. First and foremost, I was blown away by the piece. It's not the conventional kind of piece I'm used to hearing. And one of the key words there is that there is nothing like justice, but only adjustment. So it's more or less like telling us that it is a world that actually defines what is right, not actually what the people want. I went further to give so many examples that where is justice when they are raping somebody and beating up somebody and all whatnot. So to me, it's a practical piece. It's more or less like showing the way or showing the light on how things should be done instead of just sticking to a particular kind of stereotype that if it is not like this, it cannot be the other way. So like I always say, this life is not always straight. Sometimes you can have a straight line graph on a particular issue, and another time you can have a curve, like an electrical kind of graph. So you can think outside the box or if there is no box at all. So it's a wonderful piece. Thumbs up to this piece. I love you, sir. I love you, sir. I would love to hear more of this. Thank you. Thank you. Great point.
Yeah, can we have one more response to that? Thank you, Mr. Opia. Can we have one more response to that? And the idea of this is for people we just want to enjoy ourselves creatively. So if we're going to have one more response, that would be really, really nice.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. My response to that piece will come in the form of a request. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. Can we have a transcribed version of the poem? Can you make available a written version of the poem so that we'll read through it? It's a very wonderful piece.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Richmond, you heard that. Can you do you have a link where people can access your works? And this particular one, do we have it?
What I'll do is I'll send it to you and translate, and then you can get it out to the group, I guess, because I don't have it translated on other pages.
Very wonderful. Very nice piece.
I think what he's asking for is the text of the piece.
Yes, I will send. I can send, or I can't put it in the chat now, but I can put it in. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so what I liked about the piece was how insightful it was. It just triggers you to think. It's very reflective of the actual world. Like, we assume that there is justice, but in all fairness, they're really just adjustments. So that was insightful, and even from all religions, from all bases, it's really all the same, you know. So I really like that. I like listening to it. It was very insightful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Zuleha. Zuleha is well, we'll be listening to her tonight. Mr. Paul, I want to ask you, what would you say has been your greatest challenge, the greatest challenge of your career? And how old is this career, if I may ask? What would you say has been the greatest challenge of your career?
Well, one of the greatest challenges having, surviving, being able to buy sandwiches, having a shelter, making that all happen, and not being discouraged, because we can all feel like we put something together, we feel it's a really good work, and maybe first put it out and it's like nothing happened, nobody responds or something, and yet then later suddenly it does start to pick up, or you read it somewhere else and people tell you that they like that piece. And I think the challenge is not to put that I mean, all artists have said once you make your art, whatever it is, it's now out there for anybody to experience any way they are going to experience it. And if you're hoping to get a particular reaction, then you will be frustrated because you may not find that reaction, may have all kinds of different reactions. And people will come up to you and tell you what they think the poem is about. And pieces that I have written that they thought were my life, which were parts of my life, but parts of my friends, they suddenly put that on me that it's just about me. And I'm trying to do a broader thing with it. So I think it's important that we all stay in contact with what we get from doing this. Well, how does it help us? Did it help me get clarity in my mind? Did I feel like I'm stating what I hope to say in a world that doesn't want people to speak? Having words and getting information out is a key about who owns the media, who owns what people hear. So poets being in the street, you're doing your thing of being in the street, and that's a big thing because people can hear you. We used to have people stand on soapboxes and give talks in the United States. What happened is they took away those streets and put them into malls, which made them private property, which made them decide what could be said there. So now our, places of marketplace, we don't control what goes on inside those marketplaces now. You have to be, you have to get a permit to be I thought we had in our Constitution freedom of speech, but now we have these demonstrations where they say, oh, you have to get a permit and you can go into freedom zone over there and say what you want. No one's going to hear you. Basically, that's what they're doing.
Wow. So because I see that most of your pieces are the ones I've listened to are very conscious pieces, and also they address current societal issues. So there's this the of critical. There's a critical side to society and the existence of society. So so how do you think that poetry as art and practice is profitable compared to other genres? What is it like in America? I know this has been, we've addressed this, but want to hear more of it. How do you think that poetry, let's just briefly, can poetry be, is there a way to make poetry more profitable? Is there a way to make it more profitable?
Yeah, well, and again, I think that if you're if there are no venues for you to read, then you have to create those venues because otherwise no one will hear you. So it's one thing to say, I've written this poem or I've written a piece that I feel is really good. So what happens with that piece? Is it published? Do you post it somewhere? Do you go out and read it? Does it become part of a book? Because then we're talking about how to turn that into a product. I mean, if you're talking about survival and you want to make economic stuff, you have to have a product. And if you have to have a product, then you have to have a marketplace where the product can be bought. And so basically, you creating events helps bring people together. And if someone had a book there, they might sell the book. Obviously, all of us are hoping that, well, how do I get the book out more than just the 3 or 4 people who buy it at these different events? Well, again, if the society is not doing that and not giving you venues, then you have to keep figuring out how to network and create venues, and which is very different. Not all poets have that skill, want to do that. They want to be writing. So then you're just there, hoping someone, I mean, in the past, I guess some people thought that you would send in a poem to a paper or a magazine, and then your name would get known, and then you would be asked to publish your book and all that. That doesn't happen in America anymore. There's not, the big publishers didn't really want to publish all the authors that are out there. As I said, the print on demand technology changes whether things are available. Print on demand changed that I don't have to buy now 100 books or 500 books. I can buy 20 books that I print of my work, and I can take those and sell those, or send that book out to someone who I think might think that this is worth to do, and it may lead to something else. And so all my work led me to you. How did I get to meet you at Abiadoun's, and why did Abiadoun? Oh, I went to festivals with Abiadoun. Abiadoun let me know about his readings. Each thing we do moves us along, not even in the way we may think we hope to get moved along. You have to be open to seeing what it is. And again, I think it's everywhere the same in terms of whether or not, a little bit different if governments don't support the arts at all. But the governments who do sometimes promote who they say are the artists, not the people who may be artists. And we're only supposed to see the Taylor Swifts of rock and roll as if that's the only music in America. There's lots of music in America, or you would see, the Rolling Stones. Yeah, they've been around for a long time, but there's a lot of other bands, and so, but who do we hear about? That's the dilemma. You have to become not only a poet, you're your own marketer. We all have to.
That's
If we
good to
can
hear.
if we can all see that we are working together, because you have 10, 12 people on here, you could make events, all of you reading together. Those events could start to build. That would be an audience. Those events would start promoting each of you. You start to get known. That's what has to happen.
Okay. So I want to say this before I go on. I think I saw the Mr. Lewachi dropped a chat. You see, like I said earlier, part of the reason that I wanted, I've been holding readings with him every 2 weeks for some time now, and I've been trying to on my own know more about what it's like in America, because we have our issues in Nigeria. We have our issues in Nigeria, and it's very important that you also listen. When we had the guy from Ghana come join us, even though it wasn't like an exclusive session with him, he was part, of the guests we had on that day. We also saw a bit of what it's like in Ghana in terms of appreciation of poetry. So I'm going to ask this question. This is from Mr. Lokwachi, and he's the president of the club, and he's asking. He wants you to speak more about the acceptance of poetry, how poetry may have permeated the American society. For instance, we know that if we look at the Statue of Liberty, you have the Statue of Liberty. Then the American anthem is actually a poem. In fact, even the Nigerian anthem is a poem. So, and then we have, go back to the issue of Amanda, who read that poem at President Biden's inauguration. That is not what we see. That is not something that is common in Nigeria. People see poetry as just entertainment. They have events and then invite you to perform. In fact, I've had to turn down a few invitations here in Abuja because I gave them a bill and they didn't want to pay, because so when they invite you to perform, they see that they are doing you a favor by putting you on their stage, and that's a real issue. So I think what Mr. Alokwachi wants to know is because we have this belief here in Nigeria that poetry is well appreciated in America. That's the belief.
Yeah, yes, Yes and no. So I will say this: all artists, even as a juggler, I would be asked sometimes to do something free, and the line would always be, "This will be great exposure for you." And I would say to them, "People die from exposure." And that little twist would suddenly have them be silent, and I would try to then convey to them, I'm coming to do, I'm bringing my work. So I think, or people, I'll be in an event. Oh, you're here. Could you just read a poem for us? It's like, well, you paid everybody else to be here, didn't you? I mean, will you give me a sandwich while I'm here? Do I get, something, an offering? I'm making an offering. The reason that anything becomes where the larger culture has to deal with it is because the people make it happen. Throughout history, you see that, the slams started here in America and other places. It became something that people went to and started happening. There was a big argument among all the poets about having people who were drunk in a bar be judges about was that poetry or not, or whether or not they just liked the person's performance. But the fact that, so example with myself, when I came back from the Austin International Poetry Festival, I saw that there was no.
I think we're losing a bit of what you're saying.
Okay. Yeah, my internet
network and any other person.
Okay, I just lost you.
I can hear
I'm hearing. I can hear you clearly.
Okay, all you folks can hear me? Yep. Okay, cool.
I can hear you loud and clear.
So just to back up a little bit, when I came back, there weren't very many events in my area, and I saw that there was coffee shops and different things, and so I went and asked about what I would need to do to be part of to make something happen. Luckily, there was a video festival going on, and someone said, why don't you do it on that day so that people have other reasons to stay in town? And when I put out the word, I got 33 poets who wanted to be involved. The next year, suddenly I had 70. Then it moved, and I was doing 4-day festivals with 170. Now, 14 years later, after I've done this for 12 years, because I had 2 years off with the COVID, there are many poetry events that people have started. And I did a third Tuesday. Now suddenly there's 4 third Tuesdays going on. There's a second Wednesday. There's a first Sunday. So all of that helps bring the awareness in the culture that something's going on. I don't know if you can still be hearing me. And that happened with comedy clubs. People said that when someone first went to a bar and said, I'd like to do comedy here, they said, well, I don't know, come on a Wednesday. And suddenly Wednesday was packed with people coming to hear comedy and do comedy. So then they moved it to a Friday, and then that was packed. And then they suddenly decide, we have enough people, we'll have a comedy club. So I remember reading this article about saying, when will we have poetry clubs? Or, and we do actually. We have the Busboys and Poets in Maryland that has 5 places, I think, based off of Langston Hughes, in which it's a restaurant cafe and they do poetry every night. Some people were wondering whether that would be a franchise moving around the country. But it's mostly because people start to do the events and keep making them happen. It's not going to happen from the other end. If the culture isn't doing it, it's not going to happen. We're the ones who make culture happen. And then it gets appropriated from us, but we try to keep making it happen.
Wow.
So it depends on which part of the country you're in. Now, if you came to my valley, you would say, wow, poetry is really alive and well. You go an hour away in another direction and people go, poetry events? Who does poetry events? So it's what, you create 5 years, 10 years, people start to know that there's a poetry event in your city, and it becomes something. And it takes a while to keep making that happen and adding more days or adding other kinds of events or figuring out other ways of bringing folks into it, calling the media, letting them know what's happening. I mean, this is where, if you're not good at doing all those other things as any business, if you're self-employed, just because you're a carpenter, nobody will know you do carpentry unless you tell people, or word of mouth starts happening that you did a great job on their house or what you built for them. poetry is not different in any way as a trade.
Well, thank you very much. I am going to keep you, we're going to keep you on. I will have, this is going to go until for the next, we have about an hour left. So we're going to keep you on, and still the questions will be coming. And at some point, we've also invited members, people in the room to ask questions, because we're all here to learn, and learning from the master, here this evening. I'd like to invite Zuleyha. Zuleyha is a poet, project manager, and she's someone who is very, very creative. In fact, I remember the first time that I interfaced her work, her poetry. It was very enchanting. So Zuleyha is in Montreal now. Montreal should be Canada, right? Is in Montreal, and
Yes.
that's Canada. So how's Montreal this afternoon?
Well, it's cold, but it's calm. We're enjoying ourselves here.
Okay, I saw a video of you reading there, and that was very exciting. I was very excited by it, and I know it's one of these pieces that you've done here that you're reading. So I'll just invite you to say a few words of poetry, and just add to the conversation. Zuleyha Yusuf.
Okay. Hello everyone. I hope you're doing well. So I'm just going to do this reading called Unfinished. I hope you enjoy it. To retire from the charade of day, at night I lay my head to rest, then conjure lulls in preparation for my refreshment. So last night I mused about time and how with it comes lines under my eyes, my neck, proof of my effervescence etched next to my lips, the memories of all knowledge I have acquired and feelings I have ever felt marked on my forehead. It reminds me of roots from trees. I imagine it is reminiscent of my expansion, my learning, my growth. I thought about my breasts, how they are fashioned lopsided, and my comfort when faced with their uniqueness, how firm they stand. I wondered if gravity would remain kind. I brooded about my discipline and lack of, the world's expectations of me, my expectations of me, and as my mind journeyed down this drearing lull, I found myself chuckling at the fruitlessness of worry. The chuckle soon turned to laughter, then I began to be sorry for expecting a mind, face, and body that tirelessly serves to remain anew, forgetting that my being is a canvas for time's meticulous work that perseveres yet remains unfinished. And is it not a good thing to be unfinished, capable of evolving, becoming other than? To which the reverse is standing still in time, but unlike the dead trees that remain, you cannot even portray the semblance of life. You are in rot, finished. So I woke up this morning resolute to embrace the hard and soft strokes that time honors me with, because until time packs up its supplies, I remain an outstanding thing, a glorious work of art, just unfinished. Thank you.
Wow, that was beautiful. I think one line that spoke to me really, really loudly is it not a good thing to be unfinished, to be able to evolve, opportunity, possibility? That's mad. I mean, that's mad. And you have a way of digging into the inside, and removing these just like a smooth operator, you know, and it's really, really beautiful. You know, this line, is it not a good thing to be unfinished? You know, the beauty of imperfection, you know, to be able to evolve. Because if we've got into the zilt, then we can't do anything else. When you get to the sky, where are you going to fly to? You know, so I mean, thank you for that line. I mean, it's really beautiful. Is it a good thing to be unfinished, to be able to evolve? Mr. Paul, what do you have to say about the piece?
Oh, there's a lot of great things about the piece, actually. Thinking about the idea that we are all canvases, and there was a picture of a older woman whose whole face was all wrinkled, and I think the line under it, somebody asked her about something, and she said, "Well, I've lived a long and wild life. This is what you see is my face isn't smooth as if I didn't experience anything."
Hmm.
And so I think that whole thing of we are canvases of our lives, and relating that to seeing the canvas of nature, of what happens as things change through the seasons, or if there's a storm or something happens, that it's affected. We're not here in our lives, and if you're not affected, then you're not, you know, how are you growing, how are you developing as a person? And yes, I thought that the part about, are we, you know, when you think again about how culture or the economics affect our thinking, are we products that we get done? This is Paul Richmond in a box, and this is what you buy, and you get the same thing every time? Or are you, as you said, we're imperfect. We're not, you might throw that apple out because it's bruised, or you might find out that that bruised part is just bruised and the rest of it's delicious.
Wow.
And so, you know, that spoke to that of, we are in development, and yeah, I'm bruised, and yeah, I broke this arm a couple times. That's why it's a little weird, or whatever it is, you know. So is that bad? You know, so yeah, thank you for that poem. Yes, I was.
So someone else jump in and say a thing or two about the piece, and we'll go to other performers, and get back to Mr. Paul, and then out from Mr. Paul to another performer, throw in the rest of the questions. Someone else want to jump in? Confido, are you ready? Confido, are you ready? Don't know if he's there. Confido, are you ready? He sent a chat in the. Okay, let's go to Mr. Ibiam. Maazị Kedu.
Na ekwe kene mo. Gbara m na ikuku bụ ma kwari.
So I just saw Mr. Paul's face, that culture shock there. So we spoke the Igbo language. The Igbo language is one of the languages spoken in Nigeria and in West Africa. Yeah, so just spoke. So he's an indigenous. He performs poetry in our local dialect, and he does what is called mbem. Mbem. So it's chant poetry, you know. So he performed at our literary festival in 2019, and since then he's been a member of our family. So Ibiam, you have the floor. Confido, get ready.
Okay.
Ibiam, can we see your face, please? Sorry, can we see your face? You don't do this thing in the dark. Let's see your face, please. And he's dressed for the occasion. All right, let's take it away. They will.
I'll be performing a piece I titled Guam Guam Guam. A piece I titled Guam Guam Guam. Tell me. And it also resonates with radios. So some of the things I will be saying, we demand you to think about it. So I may not be so straightforward with my words. It's just for you to think and reason it out for yourself. Whatever answer you get for yourself is okay. All right. Ọra bịara ije kene m o. Ọra bịara ije kene m o. Asị m na mmiri atala na azụ anwụla. Asị m na mmiri atala ma na azụ anwụla o. Ibe kpọrọ m o. Asị m n'ikuzi m ụzọ lee o. Asị m n'ibe kpọrọ m o. Ikuzi m ụzọ lee o. Akwanụ nwanne gabanụ kpọtụrụ nwanne ya o. Asị n'ụzọ dị mma o. Akwanụ dibịa gba n'afa wee mata ife o. Asị na dibịa na-afụ mmọnwụ. Ha wee sị na dibịa na-afụ mmọnwụ ọ ma bụla eziokwu o. Ejima sị na ejima ibe ya nwụọ bụ na onye ka ha na ya so bịa n'ụwa. Ejima sị na ejima ibe ya labanụ ọ bụ na onye ka ha na ya ga-eme nwanne o. Ọ bụ na onye ka ha na ya ga-eme egwu ikenga nke ji wee mara mmọnwụ oyi. Ọ bụ na onye ka ha na ya ga-eme nwanne. Ọ bụ na onye ka ha ya ga-akpụ n'ugbu mkpụmkpụ ogene ọma bụla eziokwu. Ejima chekwa o. Gwanụmụ 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 ihe na-eme n'ama o. Biko gwanụmụ ihe na-eme n'ama o. Maka n'ụwa anyị nọ n'ime ya bụ n'ụwa gwam 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 o. Maka n'ụwa anyị nọ n'ime ya bụ n'ụwa gwam 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 o. Ma bụla eziokwu. Kedu nụ ka anyị si wee wele ihe Chukwu ji wee gọzie anyị bụ nụ nsibidi nke ọma. Wele nsibidi anyị wee hanye na mmiri oyi. Asị m anyị ewelego nsibidi wee hanye na mmiri o. Kedu ife dị iche na nsibidi n'odide ndị China na ndị Japan leyi. Mana anyị ewelego nsibidi anyị wee hanye na mmiri maka na ndị ọcha gwara anyị wee si oyi. Na ndị ọcha gwara anyị wee si na nsibidi bụ n'ife dị njọ. Ewelenu ABCD wee nye anyị. Anyị ewere nsibidi wee hanye na mmiri oyi. Anyị ewele nsibidi wee hanye na mmiri oyi. Akwa na mmiri oyi. Akwa na mmiri na-ekponu oyi. Akwa na mmiri ọzara na-ekponu na mmiri Enugu na-ekponu o. Mana ọ bụghị otu chi nọ n'ime ha. Asị m ọ bụghị otu chi nọ n'ime ha o. Akwa na anyị mere anyị mere na ya wele ibe na ụchụba na aja na mmiri oyi. Mana ọ bụkwa n'otu mmiri a ka anyị wele ihe niile Chukwu ji wee ka anyị wee hanye oyi. Unu gwanụ m oyi. Ọ bụ na ọkpịsị amaghị akpụkọ ọ bụ na abụghị adịghị nkọ. Kedu ife a ga-emelu wee melu onye ise mụrụmụrụ ọma bụla eziokwu. Kedu ife onye ọkpụ isi ga-emerụ onye isi mụrụmụrụ ọma bụla eziokwu. Asịkwa m na nsibe ndị mmụọ na-alọta na ndị mmụọ si na anyị ji hụ ụgwọ maka ihe niile ji Igbo na anyị ewelego ya hanye na mmiri. Asị m na ihe niile ji nwe m anyị ndị Igbo na anyị ewelego ya wee hanye na mmiri oyi. Maka na nwata na-ekpuzinu mmọnwụ. Asị m na onye amụrụ amụ na-ekpuzinu mmọnwụ. Na mmọnwụ abụzighị ife a na-asọpụrụ oyi. Asị m na iwa ji abụghị ife a na-asọpụrụ oyi. Akwa na omume imeji oyi ga na-emezinu o. Emezina ya eme ya wee mesanụ ya ọma bụla eziokwu. Na Igbo anaghị emezi n'iru mgbede ọma bụla eziokwu. Akwa na-eme na a na-erunu mgbede o. Ejiri ya wee kụzielu ụmụ nwaanyị anyị ka esi ebinu ma ha labe difa. Mana anyị anaghị eruzinu mgbe n'ọya mela alụkwa gị m ji wee karịzịa oyi. Ọya melenụ alụkwa gị m ji wee karịa karịzịa oyi kedu n'ife a ga-emenụ ebe ụzọ gbara atọ oyi kedu n'ife a ga-emenụ ebe ụzọ gbara atọ oyi kedu onye ga-agara anyị na be ndị mmụọ ga-achọla anya dị eji wee mara ndị Igbo ịmanakwa na asụsụ Igbo bụkwa odogwanya mme asụsụ Igbo bụkwa n'ọkanga ma bụrụ eziokwu oyi mana onye so n'asụsụ Igbo na ebe ndị Igbo nọ abechiba ya ọchị onye yiri na-efe ndị Igbo ebe ndị Igbo nọ ewechiba ya ọchị onye tụọ ọnụ n'ilu ndị Igbo ewechiba ya ọchị ọchị anyị na-achị n'ihe ọ bụ n'ọchị gịnị oyi unu gwanụmụ oyi unu gwanụmụ bụkwa na abụ n'ọdụ ayọ ka Igbo bụ Igbo na ayọ ma bụrụ eziokwu maka na ndị mmụọ agụnyego m ọkụ ndị mma agụnyego m ọkụ si m bịazi n'ife ma bụrụ eziokwu unu ga-ekwanụ m ntị n'olu maka na agbara chunu ndụ ọlanụ na-anwụ enye nwata nke karịrị ya ọjọọ ka enyere ya nye onye na mma dịkwa na be ehi dịkwa na be oge na nke na-aba ogele dịkwa na be ehi ha sị m osisi eji ama atụ ekwesịghị mmọnwụ oyi Igbo bụkwa na osisi eji ama atụ Igbo ekwesịghị mmọnwụ oyi maka na ihe egbula egbule ga-egbukwanụ nza ihe egbulu nza ga-egbukwanụ obele maka na uri ụmụ ọkụkọ nwa anwụ na ọ nọ n'afa n'ọdị ndụ na ọ dị n'afa oyi asị m na ọ dị ndụ na ọ dị n'afa oyi ịmakwa na onye mgbumgbu si n'azụ na-agụ ya mana aka ya erughị n'azụ nke dị na ngịga onye ọzọ wee gaa na ngịga wee taa n'azụ onye mgbumgbu si na ọ na-agụ ya wee si na onye bụ mkpụkpụ tara oyi Igbo ebubo ga-edula anyị ebe oyi ọ bụkwa n'akwa ka Igbo bụ Igbo n'ebe n'oyi ọ bụkwa n'akwa ka Igbo bụ Igbo n'ebe n'oyi akwa na-atọnụ n'ọmalụ atọnụ n'ofekofenye isi n'ọfịa akwa na-atọnụ n'ofekofenye isi n'ọfịa ikwuzinumo ibezinumo ọ bụkwa na ahịhịa ọka Igbo bụ Igbo na-ayọ ọnụ oyi ọ bụkwa na ahịhịa ọka Igbo bụ Igbo na-ayọ ọnụ oyi biko nụ ka anyị chigha azụ maka ihe mere anyị ndị Igbo nọkwa n'azụ ọnọghị n'iru oyi maka na ihe mere anyị ndị Igbo nọ n'azụ ọnọghị n'iru oyi Igbo ka anyị chigha azụ maka na aka gbara ha na ọ bụ n'aka na-abụọ ka eji apa ya ha sị m na agbala chụkanụ mgbe gọkatanụ dị wee gọka ọfọ ma bụrụ eziokwu oyi na na-atụkwa na agbala ụjọ bụkwa na ife ọ na-emela obodo na nwaanyị ibe ya banụ ife a na-esite n'ite ọma bụrụ eziokwu Igbo bụ Igbo ekene m ọnụrụ wekara n'ibe ya maka na dibịa gọ n'ọfọ wee gọka n'ọnụ ya asị m na dibịa gọ ọfọ wee gọka ọfọ wagwanụ ndị mmụọ ebe obi ya dị Igbo bụ Igbo ka anyị chigha azụ maka na ụmụ mmụọ na-ebezi akwa na mmụọ ndị nna nna anyị na-ebezi akwa na mmọnwụ mere anyị ndị Igbo na-ebezi akwa Igbo ka anyị chigha azụ ọnụrụ be nwanne agbala ọsọ onye nụrụ ebe a na-emegide nwanne ya agbala ọsọ onye nwụrụ ebe a na-emegide ndị Igbo ma onye Igbo ma ihe gbasara ndị Igbo a sị ma ọ gbala ọsọ anyị jide n'Igbo ka anyị jide nke na-eme anyị ọkanga ma bụrụ eziokwu oyi Igbo bụ n'ọkanga oyi Igbo bụ na agbala ka na-agbala ibe ya ma bụrụ eziokwu ịmakwa na aga na be ndị mmọnwụ aga n'eluigwe wee gaa n'ala mmọnwụ ọ bụkwa n'asụsụ Igbo ka a na-asụ asị m ọ bụkwa n'asụsụ Igbo ka a na-asụ Igbo bụ n'agbala 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 o odogwu anya mme Igbo ka anyị chigha azụ ọgwụla ka ọha m n'ọnụ maka na dibịa gọkata ọfọ wee gọka ọfọ ọgwụ ụmụ mmụọ ebe obi ya dị ọnụrụ karịa ibe ya oyi abapuetrikọb ekene m asị m ọ ga-adịrị anyị mma ọ ga-adịrị anyị mma na eke dịrị anyị mma n'orie asị m na afọ gafọtara anyị ihe ọma Aba Poetry Club na Orie ga-erutere gị ihe ọma na Eke ga-eketere gị ihe ọma Aba Poetry Club agaghị iru asị m ka o bụrụ ọkụkọ ụzọ lakpu ụra Aba Poetry Club asị m onye si na ị gaghị eme ọfụma asị m kpọsa akpọsa maka orelere asị m ka ọ jiri ala wee zere mmiri ọma bụrụ eziokwu asị m onye si na ị gaghị eme ọfụma ka o bụrụ ọkụkọ ụzọ lakpu ụra asị m ka ọ kpọsa akpọsa maka orelere ọma bụrụ eziokwu na chi ga-awara gị ọjị n'ụtụtụ wara gị ọjị n'abalị wara gị ọjị n'anyasị ọma bụrụ eziokwu. Aba Poetry Club unu chụọ aja wee chụọ aja wee chụọ aja wee chụọ aja, asị m na mmiri ga-aza o, asị m na ikuku ga-aza o, asị m na ga-aza n'elu ga-aza ma bụrụ eziokwu. Gịnị ka a ga-eme nwa nzanza? Ai, gịnị ka a ga-eme nwa nzanza? Abadị ka ị na-eme ka mmụọ ndị nna nna duba anyị oyi, na anyị yọọ na anyị ga-ayọtọ ma bụrụ eziokwu. Ọ nụrụ karịa ibe ya maka na ọgwụgwụ ụkọ ha m n'ọnụ, ọmụọbụ ijele Nwachukwu mere ije
Odogwu nataba nataba odogwu nataba.
ekele m unu. Igbo bụ Igbo, ekele m unu, ekele m unu, ekele m unu.
Really, I know it was just riddles and then good wishes and prayers. So I was saying Ise means like you're saying so be it, amen, Selah. So that's so he was wishing us goodness, praying for good. So that's chant poetry though. I especially invited him here so that you could, because we also, yes, we want to see how it is in America, but you know how it is here, because I think if you come here and all we do is say poems in English, I mean, English is something that so good to bring something that you cannot understand that we can actually explain to you, and you know that for me that adds to the richness of the experience, and you know as we cross-pollinate ideas. And saying that for you and Zuleha, I think Zuleha is only another person that may not have understood, and my friend Confido too. So it was just dropping riddles, asking questions, you know, things with the Igbo language, and not just the Igbo language, the African culture, you know, why the African culture is going down, why we're not pushing our cultural identity the way we're supposed to be pushing it. Mr. Paul, we had a conversation yesterday evening when we were doing a sound check, and you remember that I told you how culture promotion, you know, promotion of culture is not something that we, you know, the government does here. It's the Americans, the Britons, the British Council, the American Embassy. Those are the people who are promoting culture here. The Goethe Institute, the German Cultural Institute, the French Institute, the Chinese Institute. These are the ones that are the Chinese Cultural Center. Sorry, these are the people that, you know, actually sponsor artists and all that, and it's really, really appalling. And that is not talking down on our country. That is telling you, you know, the way that it is as we share experiences. And I also appreciate your honesty, you know, telling us about how it is in the American society. And I'm sure that we've learned a thing or two. So I want to thank.
I just wanted to. May I comment on the poem?
Okay.
What I just heard. It was what I really liked and got from it was the whole idea of a story. You talk about trance poetry. So there, before we were talking about what's a poem. Well, trance poetry, from just listening to that, takes us into a trance. Where does that trance take us? What is the chanting or what is the song that takes us somewhere? And the ability of then, that's not a classic poem of you go, okay, can I have a 1 minute poem, or is that a haiku or a 2 minute poem? I mean, when you go into trance or you do meditation, you're going, you know, and that was by the nature of his voice, the sounds, even though I didn't understand all the, you know, I'm not understanding the words, the effect is still there, the feeling of it happening. So I just wanted to say that. Oops, someone else is on mute, I guess.
Thank you very much for that. I'm happy that that had that effect. Okay. Okay, I think we lost you at some point, sir.
No, I'm still here. It was just that there was a
Okay.
couple of other folks. It sounded like I was getting a bunch of other folks were talking in the background, so I just stopped. I wasn't sure if you were hearing me.
Okay. Okay, so we'll dive right into the next act. Mr. Opia, are you ready? My friend Confido is unable to. I don't know what is happening to Confido. Confido, can you go out and come back in? Let's see if they can work, because that's your guitar. We need you to play this evening.
I'm ready.
Okay, sir, please go ahead.
Okay. I'll be doing a piece entitled The Weeping Queen. The Weeping Queen. I am a lonely woman who was gagged with a living memory. My experience is a book written with a quill of blood and tears upon innocent minds. My cries fell and are still falling on deaf ears, and my offspring became statistics before my motherly eyes as I cried myself into servitude and subjugation. I am a woman who is the greatness of a people, marginalized, sidelined, and belittled into nothingness, who, like a phoenix, rose from the ashes of hatred and ethnic segregation to become a force to contend with. I am sending fearful signals to custodians of authority. That's the most clueless I have seen and followed in the history of a nation. I am a woman with sagged breasts who talks too much upon deaf ears, lacking the cohesive power to think and work with a unity of purpose in order to achieve my set goals and desire to define my ultimate experience for my people. I am the ideology that beats to propel the heartbeat of a people towards life and freedom that once appeared as a rainbow, so colorful and beautiful, but turned into a mirage in a twinkle. I am Biafra, the prayer of the oppressed, the prayer of the oppressed soul who have cried a deluge and prayed for survival and emancipation from modern day subjugation and incessant tribal harassment. I am the heartbeat of humanity, long neglected. I am the weeping queen in search of freedom and self-actualization. I am the rising sun. My sun will definitely rise again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Pierre.
you.
Yes, I'm sure you read that from your book.
Yes,
You read from your book.
actually, it's from my collection. Yes, my collection, your Zoimena.
Okay. Yes, that was really, really beautiful. Bringing back a very sad part of our history, which I also know is a metaphor for suffering and courage. Sometimes I wonder why suffering will have to go with courage. Courage is such a beautiful thing, but why will it be suffering and all that? So thank you very much. Thank you very, very much for that piece. And I don't know if Mr. Paul, you have something to say briefly?
Well, just to respond to what you just said, I mean, having courage means that you do stand up and doesn't mean that there won't be suffering. I mean, maybe we're under the illusion that just because I have courage, we will be able to, make it better without there being suffering. The whole piece of anybody who's oppressed, whether it be women or all classes, speaking out or trying to be heard and not being heard. That was stated over and over again, and that is what many people feel, as though they're not being heard, and their cries for justice, as I was putting out, or their cries to be accepted as people. So that was definitely there in many different ways, which I thought was, again, it's important to, sometimes you might say, well, of course, doesn't everybody know that? And yet, no, it doesn't seem as though people, or they forget or something, or they're not seeing, if they have a voice, they don't notice the other people who don't have a voice, you know?
Well, thank you very much. Mr. Lekwachi, what have you to say on the piece? So that before we get to the next performer, then go back to Mr. Paul. Is Mr. Lekwachi there? Okay. Mr. Lekwachi?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. So just briefly, what have you to say about the piece? Don't be a historian now.
Okay, but can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I think it's a piece that is inserting millions of question marks into the presumptions of our history as we have it today. The unasked questions and the answers people have been craving. And one of the things a poet should do, being not just merely inquisitive, but confrontational, especially when it comes to part of our history or the truth or the truisms we don't want to spotlight or to mainstream. So what he has done to me is a noble cause, something that should call for further inquiries and then activities in that very area. When you begin to talk about protest poems and protest poets, I think this should be one. This is a particular poem that actually resonates with me. I think I happened to read it sometime, I think last 2 years or so before he even published it or something. So I think it's something, in fact, it's part of our national discourse and dialogue. But since you said I should be brief now and not be like a historian,
Yes.
let me leave it. Let me leave it at that for now. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Lekwachi is our historian. He's a very very one of the best minds in history, international relations in Nigeria, and he's the president of the club, and we're happy to have him here tonight. Let's try something else, because when we say about Poetry Club, people think that all we do is poetry. No, we sing. We've been able to produce or sing, not record anyway, but we've been able to produce a few songs, merge music with poetry over the years. We have the videos on our page, and tonight we have one of the best musicians in Abuja and in Nigeria, and he's my friend, Confido. Confido, if you can pop on your audio, yeah. So you have the floor, Confido.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you. We can't hear you.
Max, my grandma's 80th birthday celebration. So we came for the dinner today, and
Wow.
I decided to just stay back to do this recording.
Wow. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
So it's a bit noisy here, but I had to just get the mic. And so the first song I would like to do is one of my songs. It's titled Grandmama Blues. It's a song like a tribute to my grandmama. So I like to just do it. It's a song that will help you reflect, times, with your grandma. So enjoy it. Thank you. Grandmama is a blessed tree, she's planted by the riverside. She know the tie I want to tree, she wakes up and she sleep last. She takes me to the farm with her, she tells me stories on the way. Oh, it's so much fun to be with her. She plays all the time with me. Oh, yeah, bright eyes and smiles for me, yeah. Oh, when she's around, nobody tries to beat me. That's why I love you, love you, love you, love you, Mama. Oh, she is my guardian angel, nature's gift, the roots and how she heal your pain. Second to know what her wisdom brings, she need to talk about you instinct. She never comes to wish she left, coolly in a back, and everybody is a fan of her. She prays all the time for me. Oh, yeah, bright eyes and smiles for me, yeah. Oh, when I'm around her, she starts to celebrate me. That's why I love you, love you, love you, love you, grandmama. Grandpapa in my boxing ring. Now I found a new rival. Grandmama said she will not die till the day she sees my child, my child. She prays all the time for me. Oh, bright and smile for me, yeah. Oh, when she's around, nobody tries to beat me. When I'm around her, she starts to celebrate me. When we're together, nobody messes with me. And that's why I love you, love you, love you, love you, love you. That's why I love you, love you, love you, love you, love you. And I will love you, love you, love you, love you, grandmama.
Thanks so much.
Man,
So
that was
that's my best.
beautiful. I'm sure Mr. Paul has no culture shock here. This is pure America, music from the countryside in America. American country music. That was beautiful. Confido is really, really good at what he does, and it's somebody that I'm very happy and proud knowing, and he's a friend of the club. So I think you're gonna wrap the session for us later with another performance. I hope they don't kick you out before then. We can hear him. All right, if you're still there, we can hear you. But if you're still there, we can hear you. But if you're still there, you wrap up the session for us. We have about 15 minutes to be here,
Okay.
officially. So
Okay,
thank you very much for that piece, Confido. So I'm gonna go straight to Jachi to do his thing, to give us his performance, and I hope and pray that he's doing Hope has feathers this evening.
No, I'm not doing Hope has feathers. Good evening, everyone.
Okay, give us what you have.
Okay, this poem is titled The Poets, the Poem. I really want to go. You wish, you show up. You sit sandwiched between suffocating thoughts. They are yours. It is your turn. You are called off stage. You are lost in thoughts. You feel a gentle tap on your shoulder. You jump. You fake a smile. You stand. You float to the stage. You stare at the audience. You scan faces. You see smiles and anticipation. Ears eager to feast on your words. You sigh. You wish you could wear a smile like they all do. Birds. You wish to wear a smile like they all do. But the darkness within you is not well versed in such giggly vanity. You stare at them again. There is silence. You signal the keyboardist. He runs his fingers on the keyboard. So slow. Earth songs. Michael Jackson's. War of us alright. War of a faith. What about? They are drooling already for words, for punchlines, for porn, for the stuff they know you for. But like a spectator in a soccer game, you are not here to play. You sigh again, and the walls flow, gray, grayer, dark, darker, of hurt and pain, of demons embraced, of hopes deferred, of wings fettered, of melodies unsung, of dreams nightmared, of memories not made, of wishes lame, of stale sweetness, of sweet bitterness, of loneliness, of hopelessness. You pawn the wow, your punchlines, they snap fingers, you sigh deep into the mic, you pause, you're done, you bow, they rise, they cheer, they applaud, you float away, you are home. You flip to the last page of your diary, you reread the poem you just performed, you circle the last line. I really want to go. A rope, a ceiling, a stool. Michael Jackson's Earth song pour from the speakers of your laptop into the cravings of your dark hearts. Spasms, spasms, spasms. And when dawn arrived, they who found your body wished they listened to the poem and not the poets. But return isn't possible. Thank you.
That's deep. That's deep. And honestly, I wish you had more time. We would have. This is deep. This is deep. Jachi, I suggest you record this piece. I suggest you record this piece. We didn't have your face here, but I suggest we record this piece and put it out there. You know,
All
you
right.
never know who this is going to touch. This is really powerful. You know, and one thing about the piece is that nobody, you know, from the onset, nobody knew where it was going. It was just everywhere until the ceiling, rope, and stool, and then everybody knew what it was. This is beautiful. Thank you. So I'm going to head straight to a man we call the gong. If it's there, a man we call the gong. Stephen Uchebula, the master of spontaneity, to give us a brief piece.
Thank you. I'm so
Are you
very
there? Okay.
Yes, I'm here. So happy to be here. Thank you, Mr. Paul.
Love you.
And everybody that have gone ahead of me. You've blessed my soul tonight. I want to pick a piece from one of my works, unpublished though. This piece was written far back to 2016. And one thing about it is that each time I look at it, it still maintains the realities of today. Holy site. Let us go to the holy site and see where angels dare to tread. Let us go to the patriarch's home and see where bombs kill men at home. Do not go beside the tomb. Keep distance from their troubled home. Bullets pierce through the hearts at the tomb. Knives stab through your back at the tomb. Don't you see it's a holy site? Pay obeisance to the carcasses of doom. Don't you see it's the patriarch's home? Even in death, they tear homes apart. Oh, for their tombs, true sons are lost. Those that know there is a holy site. Lives are snatched, even at youth, for tombs their fathers knew from youth. Tombs freed from dust by blood, blood of those who love to die. Holy site made holier by blood, blood of those who wished to live. Holy site brought hatred among friends. Holy site tore closed door neighbors apart. Families hide in their tent. with fear gripping their hearts. Let us go to the holy site to shed more blood and appease the dead. Let us go to the holy site and offer prayers to the saints in tombs. My name is Stephen Uchechukwu Onyebula. Thank you.
Man, that was beautiful. That was beautiful. And I think with what is happening in Gaza right now, the war between Hamas and Israel, and you see that that is happening between holy sites, you know, and it's really, you know, crazy how we have these things, structures, monuments that we revere, and then we somehow we bath them with blood, you know, and how what we call religion came out of blood and continues to come out of the blood of men. And you know, that is that's what I see in that piece. And thank you very much. That was really, really wonderful. Okay, I think I'll go back to Mr. Paul right now. And final words, what have you to say to these young poets, all of us here? You've gone ahead, you've done this for decades. You've shared some of your experiences, your challenges. We're in Nigeria, and somehow it's there's a gulf here because in terms of experience, you know, what is happening here, what is happening there. So as a big, there are a lot of blind spots, but I also know that some of these issues are universal. Some of these challenges are universal. So if we can have some of them, the floor is yours, sir.
Well, one, it's so great to just hear the diversity among you. That is very important, I think. I mean, someone has a song, the trance poem, also the talking about, can you speak about the darkness that you feel that was expressed in that one poem? And then can you talk about stuff that's perceived as holy and not holy, which, you know, you're not allowed to do many times. And so, yes, all the topics that are there are totally universal, and that's what brings us all together as humanity, men and women, and brings us together as a people, that we have loneliness, we have senses that, you know, we don't think we can come out of our own darkness, or we see darkness everywhere we look, all those things. But what I want to praise and am grateful for of listening to is just the diversity of how, I mean, one of your questions early on was, what is poetry? Was everything that's said here today poetry? I would say yes, and it was presented in its own way. And it was presented by each individual who felt a way to present it because it is them, it is who they are. Yeah. And I think that's the key, to stay true to yourself and not go, well, my voice doesn't sound like anybody else's. That's really great, actually. I know, again, when we go back to, does it have to be a product? And does someone say, well, is it like Michael Jackson? Well, if you're trying to be Michael Jackson, then, you know, that makes it pretty tough, because there was only one Michael Jackson. People can imitate it, but what happens when someone comes up with something totally new? And can we accept that, unless everyone thinks it all has to be Michael Jackson? But today proved that, you know, you have a wide diversity of people who are speaking in their voice. And so I just want to honor everyone for believing in themselves and having their voice be strong.
Thank you very much, sir. We appreciate. I just dropped in the chat. We can find Mr. Paul's works at www.humaneropublishing.com. So that's where you find some of his works. He has some videos there. Also has some things for sale on sale there. Jachi, you can drop the link to your works too. And okay, Opia is gone, but you can also find Opia's works, you know, at you can find his works. He's dropped the chat earlier about his works, and so we can. It will also be nice to follow each other. Mr. Paul, are you on Instagram?
I was, but that got hacked by somebody, so I'm waiting to get back on to decide, but I will try to get back
So
on.
he's Paul Word Richmond on Facebook. We'll keep talking and keep sharing these ideas. You can reach. I hope that's okay, sir. You can.
Oh yeah, that website will take people to the 3 different areas that I do. One is my personal work, one is my publishing, and one is the musicians that I work with. And so you'll see, and that there's links to each of those. And there's I threw my YouTube channel up there too on the chat, so people can see that.
Okay. So let's do and follow each other on. Thank everybody who found time to come here today. This is it's 9:28 here, 9:28 p.m. here, and we're wrapping this up by 9:30. We don't want to go beyond, and we don't go beyond so that people can go do some other thing they want to do. Zuleya, glad to know that you're still here. Ogechi, Veronica, Voice Africa, thank you. I don't know who is Vanos. But I would really love to know who Vanos is. Edulala, we couldn't take your piece. I think the network was dropping you and picking you up. So sorry.
Yeah.
We couldn't take your piece. Ambassador, thank you very much. Confido, that was really that was a very wonderful piece. Thank you for the honor. The Gong, thank you. Jachi, thank you very much. And of course, my wife is here, Chinyere Igwe. Thank you very much for joining us. She doesn't want to, she's camera shy. Paul, thank you very much. I really appreciate and honor you.
Oh yeah, thank you. It was great to be invited. I hope to be invited back again. It was great to hear everyone and take in, and it's great to hear it in your own languages. Also, it's an excellent experience. So thanks.
No, thank you very much. So we're left with 1 minute. So we are going to reconvene in February of 2024, God willing. That's when we'll begin the next set of sessions for the next year. Thank you. It's been a wonderful time with everybody. Good night.